It's very much like having a death in the family. You have to go through a denial, anger, bargaining, and certainly depression.
We were just in total shock. There was nothing in our past experience to prepare us for this situation.
When families encounter the illness and are trying to learn about it, there's a great feeling of loneliness. You're all alone.
As you emerge from the shock, then you're in a stage of denial. This can't be happening to us. It will go away. It's a bad dream.
And I remember my husband and I agonized for a long time over what we had done wrong. We wondered if we'd been too strict or too lenient, or we really didn't have a clue as to what we'd done wrong.
And then as you begin to recognize that maybe it is for real, then you begin to experience the grief.
I remember one time we went to church and we finally just got up and left in the middle of the service, and my wife said afterward, she said, you know, there's not a person there that wouldn't help us if they could, but they can't help us.
When you have a diagnosis of schizophrenia in your family, it's a catastrophic event. Sometimes in the history of a family, there is a single moment that changes the lives of every member of the family forever. Such a moment happened for us one afternoon in January in 1970.
Well, it seemed to happen quite suddenly, actually. When she was in high school, she was a cheerleader for the basketball team. She was secretary of her class, and then on graduation, she went to secretarial school to continue her, to develop her skills, and was working at the time of her first episode for Gulf Oil.
During the teenage years, we thought he was just a troublesome adolescent and causing trouble.
It was not easy. At first, it almost destroyed our family. One incident comes to mind that we knew we had to do something, and that was when he, around 16, started to take the car. No license, and we were frantic about that. And that happened 2 or 3 times. We have seen our son, because he wouldn't seek treatment, being handcuffed and taken from our home 3 times. And all the time that he was being dragged away by police, he was sobbing and crying for us to help him.
This one morning, I was in the kitchen, and she was getting ready for work, and she was slamming doors, and I could tell she was angry, but I stayed out of her way. And she came into me and she said, "Are you going to tell me what this is all about?" And I didn't know what she meant, but it alarmed me.
He was starting to laugh inappropriately, talk to himself, become very angry at times, frustrated. Howard has been diagnosed many things, depending on the psychiatrist and the stage of his illness. I think he has fit in very comfortably to a schizoaffective category now, because he suffers with both mood swings and thought disorder.
I'd mentioned this to her father, and he kind of poo-pooed it. He hadn't seen anything that concerned him, but he sat her down, and we all sat around, and he asked her if there was anything that was troubling her. Well, she started telling us this bizarre story about how the government was watching her, and they were following her, and they were blaming her for an oil spill that took place off the California coast, and that she was going to leave home and get a hotel room and hire an attorney to prove to the government that she was a loyal American and to protect us. I just sat there and wept. I mean, I was just so astounded at this bizarre tale she was telling. I mean, it was obvious she really believed this.
We had taken him, made an appointment, originally not with a psychiatrist, but just with a counselor at the North Hills MHMR. And we went back several times, but at that point there was no diagnosis. Eventually, the first person who diagnosed it was a doctor at St. Francis after Bill's first commitment. The full magnitude of it was not apparent to us. I would say it was a period of several years of behavior becoming worse and worse, locking himself in his room. He punched a hole in the wall of the room, threw a TV out the window.
Well, the seriously mentally ill, I think, are best defined by the fact that these are illnesses that affect people throughout their lifetime. The level of disability may vary. Some people may be much more disabled at some times than at others, but these are essentially disorders that are there for the person's life. And the other part of it is that they produce significant disability. These are disorders which really interfere with a person's basic ability to look after themselves. The diagnoses that we generally consider that are involved in this are the diagnosis of schizophrenia, manic depressive illness, major depression, some severe panic disorder or obsessive compulsive disorder, and severe borderline personality disorder. Often you get a lot of combination with alcohol and substance abuse in people with these illnesses, but the major characteristic is its duration and the amount of disability that these illnesses produce. Usually in their earliest forms, these illnesses will look like a severe case of the troubles that many adolescents and young adults have. Probably the best indicator is if they're persistent and if the person is clearly not doing as well as they had when they were younger and that it doesn't seem to go away. That despite the normal supportive things that all families do with their young members, that if things don't start to improve or if the situation becomes bizarre, if things that are really outside the ordinary occur, then a person ought to be concerned, and then it's absolutely essential that they get an appropriate evaluation by a professional that can make the distinction between normal adolescent or young adult troubles and the appearance of one of these serious illnesses.
Mental illness in the family forces all members to deal with what is versus what could have been. People often grieve for the hopes and plans that they once had and at the same time try to deal with the reality of the here and now.
All the other cousins were getting on with their lives. They were graduating from college. They were going to graduate school. They were getting new jobs. They were finding life partners, good relationships, getting married, having babies, buying houses. And of course, long ago they had had a car. All of the things that everyone thinks of as being a part of an adult.
Holiday season is difficult. And in fact, one of his uncles is very uncomfortable with him even today. And I think it's because they don't understand serious mental illness. It is an illness.
Well, I must say that the first 10 years were the worst because that was before there were any support groups in Pittsburgh. And then we felt very much alone. And especially in the beginning, we didn't know anything about the illness or even what she had. And it was only through reading that I learned that she must have schizophrenia.
The most difficult thing has been watching him suffer, watching him as he struggled with his realization that his hopes and dreams for himself were not going to come true.